Hey everybody, welcome to a very different video from us. We're in Savannah, Georgia. We're actually in a hotel in Savannah, Georgia at the moment. We're getting ready to go out and get some food and then head over to the Sorrel Weed House, which is known in Savannah, and Savannah is known for their paranormal activity. Sorrel Weed House is known as like the top paranormal beacon of activity in Savannah and rated one of the top 5 haunted experiences in the United States. About a month or so ago, I put a call out on the interwebs asking if anybody had been on ghost tours in Savannah. And I wasn't necessarily looking for like the hokey ghost tours that we've been on before, like the Red Wagon tours or Ripley's or the Ghost and Graveyards types of things that we've done in St. Augustine. They're fine for what they are. But we wanted to do something a little bit more of a step up, and Michael from the Grim Life Collective ended up responding back and saying, you guys should check out the Sorrel Weed House. So what we're going to do tonight is not a little ghost tour type of thing. We're actually doing an after hours paranormal investigation where they do ghost tours up to, I think, about 11 or so at night, and then after everyone's gone at 11:30 at night, they bring us into a darkened Sorrel house, give us some tools, give us some explanation on how things go and what to look for, etc. And we get 2 hours to investigate until 1:30 in the morning or so. And so they're going to give us kill meters and EMF detectors, REM pods, EDI EMF detector, etc. And then we'll be able to spend about a half an hour in each of 3 locations within the house. The lower level of the mansion, the main level of the mansion, and in the carriage house with a true lights out experience. The Sorrel Weed House is built in an area that was very active during the Revolutionary War. In addition to that, the owner's wife supposedly killed herself outside of the balcony, throwing herself off the balcony to the floor below. And it was the boyhood home of Brigadier General Moxley Sorrel, and he's known to haunt the place. Ghost Adventures have been here, Taps has been here, BuzzFeed was here last year or so. I'm kind of terrified, but we're gonna go do this. Alright, so we decided to take a trip over to Sorrel Weed hours before our event starts. Take a look at the structure, as well as the Georgia Historical Commission sign here from 1954. And so the word is this house actually sits on where the British barracks were for one of the largest and bloodiest fights during the Revolutionary War. And with the Sorrel Weed House here, you pan around this way. This is Madison Square, and the roof of the Sorrel Weed House is famous in that movie as well, because the feather that opens the scene that's falling is actually filmed against that roof area and then cuts down to a church scene not here. It's just the magic of Hollywood. And this monument in Madison Square is for Sergeant William Jasper, who, though mortally wounded, rescued the colors of his regiment in the assault on the British lines in this city on October 9th, 1779. Now back to the Sorrel Weed House. They have regular tours, and then they have ghost hunters house walking, then they have the Ghost of Sorrel Weed, and then the 11:30 is the paranormal investigation, which is what we're signed up for. Alright, so we came up to the courtyard of the Sorrel Weed House because actually we just opted in to do a house tour as well, so we can get the feel of the house before we do the investigation later. And we've actually got a very large group up onto the stairs.
So guys, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Sorrel family history. Then we're going to make our way across the hall into the parlor rooms, and downstairs to the level of the mansion, and back out to the courtyard, and finally we're going to finish up in the carriage house.
We're going in. Alright, we're heading into the study.
officially welcome you into the Sorrel Weed House. Because this house, it's a whole 10,000 square foot Greek revival mansion. It was completed in 1840 by Charles Kletzky. But this gentleman running on the left, Francis Sorrel, as a wedding gift to his second wife, Matilda. Now Francis, he was born in 1793 in Saint Domingue, we know today's Haiti. And his father was a French noble and an army engineer, and his mother was a free woman of color. Now, when he was only 7 weeks old, his mother unfortunately passed away from complications due to childbirth. 2 years later, his own father would abandon him. So he was actually left to be raised by his mother's family, all alone in Haiti. He was in a way all of his teenage years. Because when he turned 19, he actually came into contact with 2 very famous shipping merchants stationed in Haiti at the time. They from France, they took him under their wing. He became the protege. They're the ones in charge who taught him English. They're the ones running America. They took him to Maryland, Virginia, all the way to Savannah. Now still in Virginia, Francis met his first wife, Lucinda Moxley. Now Lucinda, she has a name but no wealth. Francis, on the other hand, had all the wealth but no name. So naturally they were arranged to be married. And they were married for 5 happy years. And so unfortunately, at the end of those 5 years, Lucinda tragically passed away from the devil's disease. After her passing, the Moxley family did not want these 3 children to be left to be raised without a mother. They didn't even trust Francis enough as a single father. So they arranged for him to be remarried only 2 years after Lucinda passed away. Now the second wife would be Matilda Moxley, Lucinda's younger sister. Now a lot of people argued that their marriage was more a marriage of contract than a marriage of actual love. Although a lot of people argue that there was a little bit of love, because Matilda bore 8 of Francis's children.
Wow.
Now, 3 of these children unfortunately did not live past childhood. Now, these 3 deaths were only a few of the many unfortunate deaths that plagued Matilda's life. It said that literally almost every other year of her life she was constantly losing another family member. So she was almost always in these constant states of mourning and depression, almost oftentimes wearing full black outfits. Now still, out of the 3 young children that she lost, the oldest of these 3, little Matilda Ann Sorrel, she did pass away in this mansion, up on the 4th floor, in what at the time would have been the children's quarters. Now, to this day, little Matilda, she is one of the many reported figures a lot of people report seeing around the property. Now, I've had a few people tell me that when they're in the foyer, they look up at the top of the staircase. I've had about 3 people say that they've seen a little girl at the very top. Now, I myself have not seen this little girl on the staircase, and I do not want to see a little girl on the staircase. They ran for 11 more years after that. For the rest of the show, they could not capture something loud, clear, or long as what they captured in this property. Now, still, this little piece of evidence, this little EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, is one of the many pieces of evidence captured in this house.
Going into the parlor room.
From the time the house was completed in 1840, all the way to Matilda's tragic passing in 1860, these rooms often treated a lot of people to some very wonderful parties. Now, the Sorrels at their time were known to be the party family in Savannah. Made this house the party house. Anybody who was anybody wanted to be invited to these parties. So much so that literally hundreds of people from all across Savannah would come down. But these rooms couldn't accommodate hundreds of people. So all these parties, they would start outside of Madison Square. Tables would be lined around the square, they would sing, they would dance, all the way to the early hours in the morning, coming from within the rooms and on the hallway. They've told us that they've been woken up in the middle of the night by music playing, people singing, people dancing. All these sounds that to them obviously is not coming from outside. It's a muffled confine that echoes throughout the walls. Now, whenever groups appear,
Naturally, I always have that one person who always asks me what guests often experience. That's always the undoubted question. I've had a few people come into this house, and they've told me that they'll hear whispering right next to their ears. They'll sometimes say they see the corners of the rooms engulfed in dark shadows, or they'll see full-bodied apparitions. Members of the tour, somebody heard somebody laughing, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think it sounded from outside. I know exactly where.
Just thought I saw a shadow
He's
right
sitting out the
here.
hallway, and he's begging for him to come out, and he doesn't budge. He stands in front of the mirror, pulls up his camera, takes a picture. So as he's walking out, he looks under the phone.
So I'm still a little stuck
Yes.
on this frame. I haven't seen anything else. I just want to point out, this is the men's parlor. And we're going into the women's parlor room next.
The rooms, they fell instantly in love with them. And the father did something that I consider to be really smart. He pulled out his phone, and he started to take a panoramic picture of the rooms. So he started at the gentleman's parlor, circled all the way around, and he reached where his daughter was standing. So as soon as he reached them, he stopped the photo, zoomed in on them. Now the daughters knew that they were standing above themselves, and the group around them knew they were standing above themselves.
Oh, wow. Oh, my.
Oh my goodness.
So
Was that her?
So this is not the original stairwell that was in the house, but you can see
there used to be a staircase.
the marking on the wall
That is.
where the original stairwell
So
went.
guys,
This is the original stairwell. We're going downstairs into the darkness. Get a couple candlelights.
this is what would have been the auxiliary kitchen, or secondary kitchen. On the opposite side would have been the main kitchen. Right across from us is a very special room in the property. It's the one room that I like to call my favorite room in the whole mansion. So because with this, I want everybody to join me right in over here.
I'm just so scared. If I did.
Now you're so scared of renovation. Now let's get business. No, we don't have one.
Oh, yes, this is a laboratory.
This particular room served a very specific purpose in this house. This room operated as a surgery room. But this gentleman on the table right over here, Dr. Frank Sorrel. So Dr. Frank, he was one of Francis's oldest children. He was what a lot of people would call a wanderer. He'd often leave the house, he'd state, go on big adventures, and he'd come back with rich and good stories. Now, every single time that he would come back, Francis, being a family man, he would often tell Frank that he did not want that way of life for him. He wanted him to stay at the house, settle down, marry, live with the family, essentially. Frank said he would only do this under one condition, and that was that he could use this room to practice medicine. Only this wasn't just general medicine. Dr. Frank Sorrel was a trauma surgeon. That meant that all of his patients were people who had lead bullets stuck in their femurs, people who would have been run over by carriages outside of the streets. These were people who would be brought into this room, put on a table much like this one, and operated on with tools just like these down below. Now, Frank, he actually had the lowest mortality rate in the nation at the time. And this is both very rare and incredible, considering not just the tools at the time, but also considering that he lost an awful lot of patients. It said that Frank lost over 50% of his patients, and he was considered to be absolute best. Wow. So it was literally basically 50-50 shot whether he survived or not. Door led to the back alleyway, left to be collected by their family members or with the Savannah bone collectors. Now, a lot of people, they usually come from all over the country just to be in this room. I call this my favorite room in the whole mansion. To a lot of other people, This room is known to be the most notorious room in the entire property. This room is the reason why I asked you if you're wearing long dangly earrings. So, who is the one, there were a few who were wearing long dangly earrings, right?
Yeah.
You are. There's one figure who a lot of people believe to be really dominant. So, as you guys can imagine, many people who have passed away here, young people, 12, 16, 18 years old. There's one figure who we believe passed away at the age of 5. We've affectionately given her the name Sarah. And Sarah reportedly loves to play hide and seek. Now her version of hide and seek is she'll hide under a table, desk, a chair, a couch, anywhere in this entire mansion. And the way you know you found her is you stand in one of these areas, she'll reach out, grab the back of your ankles, and pull. Now, I at least have seen this happen multiple times in tours, and because I've seen it happen many times, I can tell you with a certainty how it definitely will not feel and how it might feel. So it definitely won't feel like a cold hand touching you. So because if at any point in this tour you feel a cold hand touching you, somebody in your group is going to scare you. I can see, okay, stay right there. Can you guys see like the light hitting her hair on this side? I just saw her hair go like this. Did you not feel it? Did you really not? I legitimately just saw your hair go like this.
My earrings are still in.
Oh, that was like so clear as day. It's especially because the light is hitting your hair. That's how I was able to see it. Wow. Oh, shoot, okay. And you're the one who did the investigation, aren't you?
I'm sorry?
You're the one who's doing the investigation, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Did you give a tour? That's a
Main
lot.
kitchen.
Linked to the properties, especially in the lower level. Now, we've affectionately given him the name Shadow Man. So, Shadow Man, like the name so aptly suggests, a lot of the times when people see this figure, all they describe seeing is this really tall, dark, looming, three-dimensional shadow figure. They'll see him pacing back and forth 3 or 4 times, sometimes he's dashing from one side of the lower level all the way straight through the other. And so Shadow Man, he's a figure of big mystery in the property, particularly because we don't know exactly who he could have been. We don't know if he could have been a patient of Frank Sorrel's or a soldier who passed away during the American Revolution. Most people believe he's a soldier. That's the biggest theory. Usually because he's seen running back and forth almost as if he's in battle or standing guard in an area of the property. Watching your eyes. So the moment that this kid reaches his chair, he stops in front of him, he's just staring at it for a few seconds, and then he turns around and he's scanning the crowd and he spots me and he starts screaming and crying violently.
Why is he screaming?
Oh, I'm going to tell you why he's screaming. So he ran up to me, buries his face in my chest, so I'm holding on to him, and he looks up at me, and as he's crying, as he's sobbing, the only thing he can tell me is, and I'm going to say this, like word for word, as a quote, make that boy stop smiling at me. Ooh. The only other little boy in that tour was his brother, and his brother was in the breezeway. So at that point, he then tells me that he saw a little boy sitting in the chair. His legs were crossed, he had a wide smile on his face, and was waving really fast at me. I've never seen any person that scared in this house in my entire life.
Walk back to the surgery room to get a closer look at these tools. Better look at this table. Just flashing a light so you guys can see the types of bullets that were taken out.
From time to time to actually keep her calm.
Talking about Matilda, the second wife.
Parties were actually one of the very few things that actually kept Matilda happy. So that's what the Sorrels are such a big party family. Now, in the spring, they have what they call the big spring events. These are some of the biggest parties ever. So there's one day, March 27th, 1860. This is the day where they're gearing up for one of the next parties. So that day, the whole family is getting ready, and Matilda, she's seen roaming around, but everybody's noticing that she's growing very uneasy. She kept asking everybody where Molly was. And Molly was an enslaved person in the property. She was actually the head housemaid. She was in charge of telling the rest of the enslaved where they needed to be, what they needed to do, in preparation for all the parties. Essentially, Molly's supposed to be Matilda's side 24/7. So Matilda, she's searching throughout the whole mansion. She can't find Molly. There's only one place where she had not checked where Molly could have been. And that was her own bedroom. So this window in the uppermost corner of the carriage house, that window leads to Molly's bedroom. So originally there would have been a door there, and there would have been a staircase starting in the courtyard that went all the way to the balcony and wrapped all the way around this side of the carriage house. As soon as she knocked on that door, nobody came. But Matilda clearly still hears somebody speaking on the other side of the door. So she opened the door, she peered in, and she finally found Molly and her husband, Francis Sorrel. So naturally, this was very devastating to Matilda to see. Suffice it to say, though, Francis being an enslaved people's owner, and Molly being an enslaved person herself, a lot of people can already assume what was happening in the situation. And Molly and Matilda, they considered each other to be very close, almost very sister-like, somebody once mentioned in a book. So this really drove Matilda over the edge. She was so distraught, so disheartened. She ran back down the steps, ran into the house, and locked herself in the second story balcony. Now, everybody out here, they all watched as Matilda leaned over the side of the ledge, screaming back and forth. And a few moments later, everybody watched as she let go in a moment of lunacy, tumbling all the way down, reaching along the base of this concrete sandstone. She landed head first in what was described as a crumpled mess. And still 2 weeks after her death, the family got some more news. To find out that Molly had been found hanged by a noose wrapped around the beams in her skin. Because Molly was an enslaved person, she was not considered a person or role, she was considered property. So no official investigation was made into her death, and thus she was just ruled off as a suicide. But a lot of people thought differently. A lot of people firmly believed that there could have been foul play involved in Molly's death. That she could have perhaps been murdered in an act of revenge against Matilda. Like as it is in that bedroom where ghost hunters captured the longest ever EVP in the Chronicles phenomena to date in the history of the show.
This was the slave quarters. They would have had bunks in the room where the people are walking, and in Molly's bedroom is just beyond that. This was Molly's room, where she hung herself on one of these beams. It's a wash basin. Dresser. Alright, so we're done with the tour of the Sorrel Weed House. Fascinating tour. A lot of good history there that I'm sure we wouldn't have gotten during the paranormal piece, which I think we're probably going to break into a separate video. We did have a couple of really kind of odd experiences while we were on this tour. At one point, as you can see in the video, or hear in the video at least, it was pitch black. From my vantage point, Mary's hair was apparently being pulled by one of the known spirits that pulls hair in that surgeon room. But before Mary walked into that room, she took a picture, and she was the first person entering the room, so there were no other people to cast a shadow, and this is the picture that she ended up taking. So a little odd. The tour guide was really excited about the picture as well, so really weird picture to take. But I've had experiences in the past, especially at the Zach Bagans Museum, where I know I felt affected. I took video, and you can check that link out up above, where I had scratch marks after leaving Zach Bagan's museum as well. I felt really weird in that room where Mary was touched, and I felt really weird in the carriage house, especially when we got up to like the slaves' quarters area. I felt very faint, like I was going to fall down. And then the room where Molly had killed herself, it felt like an overwhelming stench. So just weird stuff. Maybe we'll see how weird things get later when we're able to go on the paranormal investigation. So for now, I'm going to say goodnight. Check out part 2. Thank you very much for all of your likes, comments, and subscriptions. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Have a great night. See you guys.